capacities, to telepath messages through the vast unknown. Please close your eyes and concentrate with every thought you think.
Hi, and good afternoon. We just had a bit of technical difficulties, but we are on now, and I just wanted to give you some real short announcements. I am Miesha. I'm the host of Starseed Awakening, and we have a wonderful guest today. We have Takana, and she's going to be joining us very shortly. I just wanted to tell you a few things about the organization. First of all, you can go on the Starseed Facebook site. That's Starseed Awakening Facebook, and you can join that site. It is a site for experiencers, contactees, starseeds to share in a safe place. And talking about sharing, we share in a support group twice a week. The Sunday at 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. 7 to 8 p.m., but it usually goes over. I wanted to let you know about those, as well as we have the local group, the meetup site, which is, you just go to Las Vegas Starseed and Psychic Awareness, and you can get our group there, sign up for all the different groups and things that we have going on right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have 2 groups a month. I have the Starseed Awakening Experiencer group on the, it actually is the next group, which will be on the first Friday of every month. And then on the 3rd Friday of every month, we have the Starseed Experiencer group. So go on my site, starseedawakening.net, and it will tell you that, and go to the section on about services, and it'll give you all the information about the different organizations. As well as right now here in Las Vegas, I have an ongoing I have an extraterrestrial art exhibit. It's a mouthpiece. An extraterrestrial art exhibit, and it is at the Enterprise Library. There's 35 wonderful paintings, drawings, sketches of people's experience of their ETs, and it is the ETs, the real ETs, not the Hollywood ETs. So do come for next Fridays at 5 o'clock. I'm going to have the art exhibit guided tour, which I will be sharing with you and all about the people's experiences and sharing their stories. And so you can also contact me at starmiesha99@yahoo.com. So now I'd like to, I think I've covered everything. And of course, I do want to tell you that this radio station does a great job here, and they're doing, you can donate by donating to the site. You can get an iPhone, a chance to win an iPhone. So go on the site, join the site, and win an iPhone. So now I'm going to tell you just a teeny bit about Tu, because she's got a long and a great story here. So, but Tu is a shadow government intelligent asset and psychic super soldier. She has been involved in this since she was a child. It is a bloodline thing. Her grandfather starts with her grandfather, and him being the head of a Navy he's a Navy physicist, and so she's going to just go into more detail about that. But this is an exciting show, and be ready to call in to our call-in number 702-751-0020. Come to the chat room just by clicking on the where you're listening to right now at the radio station, and just click on chat and come into the chat room. Just go to the little star symbol, put your name in there, and it'll take you right into the chat room and with your name. So thanks for joining us, and let me now welcome my friend and actually a colleague, because we have a group together. It is the MK Ultra Monarch Super Soldier and a Targeted Individual support group that also meets on Uvu, and right now it's meeting once a month. As we get more people, we'll probably take it to twice a month. So do come and join that. In order to join that group, you will need to fill out the questionnaire that will be sent to you when you show interest in coming to the MK Ultra Monarch group, Facebook group. Alrighty, so 2, I just want to thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to just let you go ahead and take over the mic and tell us, start from the beginning, wherever you want to, and thanks for coming.
Hi, Miesha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a little choked up right now because just as we've begun the show, I felt this very, very strong presence of Lyran feline aspects in my midst, and feeling that support from that loving star family, the Lyrans. And I have this joke that it's kind of an inner joke, but it's the truth. Taking on this life role that I have, I deemed this my kamikaze anuhazi mission because it's really a suicide mission. But yet, somehow, I have been divinely protected. And not only have I survived, I am doing well. And I'm ascending. I'm experiencing the love and support of my multidimensional self, my star family, and being able to put together the fragments of my life over the past several years has been quite a journey, but I have been supported divinely. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost, from the start to art, to my... is what it has felt like. Has been a journey of my soul, needed to help me recognize and express my personal soul codes and the things that I carry into this world. And I would not have known myself or been able to understand the roles that we're playing here on this planet at this time had none of these kind of dark things occurred. So it started from what I'm aware of, yes, with my grandfather. He was a supervising Navy physicist, and I don't have a lot of memories as a child of him talking to me about his military involvement. It was not consciously spoken about a lot. I recall knowing a lot more about his business building houses, about his craftsman building furniture or stained glass. He was an artist. He was a draftsman. He could design houses and build them. And I remember all those things being, discussed by the family. But it wasn't until his funeral in 2006 that I was confronted with all these men in uniforms and the revelation in his obituary about the fact that he was actually a supervising physicist in the Navy up until he died. So whatever he was doing, it must have been pretty, hush-hush to where, from my conscious perspective, we just kind of acted like it really wasn't that important. Now, since I started deprogramming, since I started realizing something is going on, was really after he died. because after, it was actually right when he died, I started downloading, getting all this information about the Rosicrucians, about very calm,
really?
that your dad was involved with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's something that I don't think people really understand, is that the guys who control things behind the scenes in the military-industrial complex and in the shadow government, they're the they're the Cabalists, they're the occultists. They're adepts of, occult magic, what we would call magic, and there are all sorts of levels of different abilities, that these people actually have, that the rest of us are treated like, we're too dumb to know. We're given information in our media and in our school and in our religious structures to believe that those things aren't possible. It's all just a fairy tale. It is very far from a fairy tale. It is actually the crux of what seems to be, from my perspective, controlling things. It's an interdimensional cosmic war, a cosmic multidimensional spiritual war, basically going on. And from my perspective, my family was caught up in this to different degrees. So when I was born, my birth was somewhat, even the pregnancy that my mom had, it was orchestrated. She can tell you, she was in the bed. My father went to University of Florida when I was in the womb, and we actually lived on campus till I was about 2. So I think that's an interesting thing to take into account too. I spent the first years of my life on university campus. And she will tell you, she was in bed one morning after my father woke up, and he had gotten into the bathroom to get into the shower, I believe, she told me. And she was laying in bed, just, about to begin her day, sort of a thing, waking up and, just looking around. And that was when she describes, going ice cold, being in the presence of some very dark, very powerful, malevolent force that she calls a demon. She was raised in a Christian household, and it has the Christian ideology. So it's very simple. There's no complex metaphysics with that. It's demons and angels. You kind of you have one or the other. So it was a very demonic force from what she could tell. She was scared to death. She couldn't move, and she could sense and understand that they were going after her womb. They were going after her baby in her womb. They were trying to do something to me. Now, she was so scared, she ran around to different churches and asked them to deliver her child in the womb, praying over me, putting the Holy Spirit in her womb. I mean, she was very, very distraught about that situation, very concerned for me. And when I was born, we both almost died.
Do you think, I have a question for you, do you think by chance she already knew she had been involved in some kind of a ritual impregnation and knew it and was afraid and was trying to see a way out of it?
I don't know. I think that, with my mother, she displays symptoms of programming for sure. And I don't know what has happened or hasn't happened with her, but I have, suspicions that something like that is quite possibly the truth. She, knows and she can perceive that something is going on with her kids, that the way she understands it, it's like, the devil wants my kids. Why are they after, why is this huge spiritual battle going on with my house? I mean, she sold her home when I was 13 or 14 in order to get away from the satanic cult of older, boys that seemed to be stalking me and our family. Yeah, I mean, it was really dramatic. And what was going on was the whole family was being manipulated by the programming of the government, the shadow government agency. I believe my mom and father's divorce was manipulated. I think my mom was manipulated at that time. Yeah, I would say there's a real good chance, Miesha. I would imagine that something like that might have triggered something in her. That's very possible. But yeah, so So that's kind of the first big thing, I guess, is we could say, well, my mom did perceive the manipulation to my genetics in the womb. See, what I understand now is that my grandfather actually had this very old, I don't know what the word is, except old Anunnaki spirit attached to him, that after his death, it was passed on to me, basically. And so from my dealing with this situation, what I understand is that their agendas are multi-generational to where, oops, I lost a body. Well, that's no big deal. It's like losing a shoe. You just get up and you go to the next one that you can claim legal rights over, or have some sort of contract with, because you can claim certain karmic law or whatever to invade that person. So it's kind of how they operate, is that the beings behind the scenes with the knowledge and the power, they're non-physical, and they seem to attach to or work through physical beings, but they just go from one to the next, kind of like body snatchers or something.
This is just the Anunnaki that do this?
Huh?
This is just the Anunnaki that do this?
Well, no, I think reptilians, I think it's a 4D astral, just a thing. It's like if you have and even humans, magicians, adepts who pass over, if they know how to vitalize or to stay in their astral body in a way that retains its independence, there's certain occult principles, hermetic principles that can be used to actually do that as a human being. So that, to me, that's where the real vampires come in. Is these guys, these sorcerers, basically. Well, they're more than sorcerers; they're magicians. They know how to like raise their own body after death, or to preserve it for long periods of time. That's where the real tales from vampires come from, because you do actually have to cut off the head of those bodies to disconnect the. It's the preferred way to disconnect the constant vampirization, feeding of the body to energize it and to preserve that, which they'll do in an attempt to raise it at a later date. So, yeah, lots of weird stuff. My whole childhood is just filled with the weirdest experiences that I understand now are programming experiences. And when I got to be a teenager, after I went to the NASA space camp, I was there at age 12, and I won something called the Right Stuff Award.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's a big deal, it was really, really exciting to me. And not only that, a space shuttle actually went off behind me when I got the award. It was right during the launch, our ceremony. So, as far as programming goes, that was some of the most positive reinforcement I could have gotten.
Yeah.
More than likely as a reward for what I had suffered during those 2 weeks. But it was shortly after that, within 6 months, that I went from being a straight A student in the gifted student program with, every type of exceptional talent. You can pretty much, anything I wanted to do, anything I put my mind to or tried to do, I was excellent at. And I was happy overall. I had friends. I had everyone liked me for the most part, or they thought I was really weird. but I was not an unhappy child, and suddenly I am just overwhelmed with the worst migraines, splitting headaches, gut-wrenching pain, feeling like I'm being stabbed in my solar plexus over and over again, flashbacks of men in red robes around me, complaints of multiple personalities showing themselves to me. And this led to my hospitalization in a medical hospital, where they used the pain as basically an excuse to hospitalize me for over a month, put me onto a Demerol pump every 3 hours for over a month. And a lot of programming was done during that time. So at the same time, what was being accomplished was the manipulation of my mother and my stepfather's reality. They were led to believe that I had some sort of, neurosis, an anxiety disorder. And I needed to, work with these doctors, particular doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists to help me. and, put me on an anti-anxiety med, and I think I was eating baby food for a few weeks. And what was really going on was they were programming an addictive alter, number one, because they love to get their assets strung out on anything. It totally discredits them in the eyes of everyone around them if anyone knows they once had a drug problem, number one. Number two, the mental illness file served that same purpose. It was very important to create a medical file that would support that I am just a crazy person. That way, if I fought my programming and I did not cooperate, they could scapegoat me as a crazy person, hopefully activate this addiction program, and the rest is just, a sad story of just someone who never made it in life. And they do this to a lot of their victims. I have seen people from the program in mental institutions being treated like they're crazy for complaining about the program, something that I have experienced myself. Well, by the next year, I was having so many spiritual experiences. It was overwhelming. Ghosts, angels, demons, dead people. I mean, my mediumship abilities just went through the roof. I didn't know I was empathic at that time either. I didn't understand that gift about myself, So I suspect that they used psychotronic technology to actually cause the pain in me so they could get me in the hospital from the get-go. Oh, yeah. And then as I got a little bit older, they basically just drove my mom and stepdad pretty crazy with everything, between the cult reinforcers, which they would call it, the Satanists, making their life miserable, me in and out of hospitals, complaining of all of these problems. They didn't know what to make of it. And they did this to me off and on, put me in and out of hospitals until I was about 16 or 17. And then I just said, okay, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to go along with the program. And so I went to school. I went to college. I stopped complaining, basically, about my spiritual experiences. I stopped asking for help. And I went to college. I got my bachelor's, two degrees, psychology, advertising, and public relations. And as soon as I graduated, I was actually hired on by my father to go to work for his company, which was in the engineering, the contract engineering business.
I hear sound.
So, I went to work for him, and it was within a short period of time that he realized he had a very good situation. He had someone that he trusted, that he could train to work with the logistics of the business so that he could go and focus on sales. So I actually took over managing the company, and then he came to me and said, well, instead of placing engineers on contract for aviation defense companies, being the niche guy who knows how to get the real programmers and people who have the experience they're looking for certain types of embedded systems, what he decided to do was, well, we're just going to have a laboratory. We're going to hire on those types of engineers in-house and buy the contract out. So we ended up doing that. And, within a very short period of time, I was managing a business. We changed the whole, I did the marketing, the hiring, the payroll, the finance, everything, okay? And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I think it's important that people understand I'm not an idiot. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a crazy person.
No, you're not. You're very well spoken, and no, you're not a crazy person. I know that.
And that's the whole abuse system really depended on creating that illusion for everyone around me and myself, because I bought into it too for a while. I didn't know. I thought I'm bipolar, I'm going manic, or why do I want to kill myself? I must be depressed. And now I can look at every single event like that and understand it was a programming response to specific stimuli. It was a preconditioned response trigger. So during the time I was working for my father, September 11th happened. Well, it may not seem like such a big deal until you think about the fact that every single person in my office, except me, had top secret security clearance. And they were the guys who were actually, based on their expertise and past experience, selected specifically to be in charge of reverse engineering the black boxes of American Airlines jets.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're getting calls in, and the calls for questions are going to be at the second half. So if the people would just hold off till the second half to make those calls in for the questions. Okay. That's fine.
Great. Well, I'm excited. There's already people with questions. Good deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, they hooked me up. They hooked my mother up with this behavioral. Okay, let me tell you what he's really called. He was labeled a psychiatrist, but he's not. He's a Illuminati, what's the word? Behavioral, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget this. Behavioral scientist. That's what that's what he technically is, okay? So his main interest was in, implementing program and cult control. And he's very cold, and he works right now for Patrick Air Force Base, along with the woman who did all my psych testing. Now, when they had me in these hospitals, this was not about, keeping a mental patient safe from harming herself and others, although they made the illusion appear that way. You see, the shadow government and the secret intel ops, it is 85% illusions. Uh-huh. There's like 10 or 15% of a real occult activity, and then there is tons of illusions. It's very hard to navigate in this environment and have a concept of what is real, what is just in your programming, what is virtual reality, and what's a real spiritual experience. I mean, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. So the way that they got into my psychology so deeply to train me to perform functions that I talk about was done a lot of that was done in the hospitals, and I have memories of certain things that I have recollected, and I did not recollect my memories through regression therapy or having a hypnotist help me or a therapist, because I know what people say, oh well, somebody put it in your head and gave you this. No. My life went to shit. And it was in my face. And it took me years and years of desperation and fighting to even survive it and be able to accept what in the heck is actually going on with me. Mm-hmm. So I recall them having me hooked up. It was a hospital called Indian River Memorial Hospital. It was one of the places they took me in Indian River County, Florida. They took me into a room. It was maybe an off-white or beige. It was pale. A little room. I'm on a table. I'm strapped down. They gave me some kind of shot. Okay, it must have been some sort of drug to relax me. They put electrodes, like little white pads and wires, all in my head. Mm-hmm. And I remember also a sensation of like knowing there's little pins going in my scalp.
Right.
And they're showing me pictures on a screen, and they're asking me questions. And they're telling me things and showing me pictures and doing something. I think they were either reading my reactions and also punishing me. Mm-hmm. Because this is what they do. They train you to access a particular brainwave state. Okay, this is important. So let me make sure I make this very clear, because it's very ill understood by survivors at this point in time.
Right.
And
now you're a little echoey. You're too far away.
Sorry, I was leaning over trying to find my notes.
Oh, okay.
So that I didn't forget this. Yeah, we're talking about the way that they create the altars inside of the victim. So when we talk about being a super soldier, mm-hmm. we talk about being an assassin, or we talk about being, involved in a covert op.
A monarch,
right?
even.
Or monarch, right. Well, this is what people don't understand. Monarch-programmed individuals oftentimes have super soldier parts. Mm-hmm. There's not much of a separation there. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm trying to get at, is that it's confusing because terms like omega and delta, that has meaning to the military that refers to certain groups, the omega group, or that's a different type of vocabulary and meaning than what we're talking about when we're talking about programmed assassins and omega versus delta, betas, or so forth, that type of programming. What we're talking about is that this person was actually put up to a table. They were prepped. They were given probably drugs and electrodes, like I was describing earlier.
All right.
And then they're trained. They're forced to achieve certain brainwave states that are measured by, it's like an EEG type of a thing. Okay, with the wires and everything. So they're going, okay, well, we want you to get into alpha brainwave state. So at the alpha brainwave state, they may program things like sex alters for sexual services. They may program assassin alters. It just depends really on the methods of the programmers, because what I'm finding out, what I'm seeing is that people may have different programming hidden at different levels of their system than other people. I don't think it's across the board. I think there's some sort of freedom to personalize systems and assets a little bit. And that probably keeps them from being able to just go in and handle and access an asset and mess up their system or get access to top secret information. So
like
they'll say to the child,
is what you're talking
okay,
about.
Now you've reached the alpha state. Wonderful. That's a good thing. Okay, and they give you positive feedback in whatever way. But as soon as you come out of that state and they see it on the machine, they shock you or they hurt you. They do whatever it is that terrorizes you.
Right.
And they teach you how to hold that state for longer and longer and longer. They do that at alpha. They do that at beta. They do it at delta. They do it at epsilon. They do it at for the phi and the theta. Now these are actually brain wave states where what happens is once you create that template at that particular brainwave state, so now you've got an alter it can hold an alpha state, or it can hold a beta state, or it can hold a theta state. Now that alter, that pure alter, becomes a template, and it gets split up in a very kind of mathematical, systematic way into different sections and subsections, alters that exist at that brainwave state. So perhaps at beta, we have a sex alter that lives at the beta brainwave state, and that sex alter might respond to specific stimuli like a color code or a number, a sequence of numbers. One thing that they really like to use a lot that I've experienced is harmonics. It's a sound. I mean, they can use music, they can use a frequency they can send to you because they've entrained you to it. It becomes a trigger.
Yes.
So like when I was basically kidnapped by the cult in 2010, it was a very interesting time for me because I retained a lot of my awareness, my co-awareness of some of the things that happened. And I got to see firsthand and retain that memory. So they wanted in my system. And what happened was an inner alter in my system it's called Queen of Hearts programming, ended up being activated as a defense system against the handlers trying to do something with me they weren't supposed to. So then that alter came out in me, the Queen of Hearts. She calls for the real programmers, the real handlers who own the system above them, who outrank those people, and they retrieve me for reprogramming. So even in our system, we have built in like alarm systems that cause us to basically tell on ourselves if anything starts to get messed with that could cause security problems for the programmers. Now, some of the things that
Can I ask you a real quick question, because that way people can understand. Okay, as these programs are, so you have like two, three people working on you at a time. You have the ones that are using the equipment and the shock treatment, and the other ones are, how are you going into these theta states? Is this the hypnosis thing? Is this, I don't quite understand how you go into that.
Well, when this happened, when they were doing this to me, I was admitted into a hospital. So I was in their care. And yes, they give me shots and they drug me whenever necessary to handle me.
Okay.
So at the time I was a child, I was under the care of doctors. I didn't have a choice. You see, I did not perceive any sort of choice. It's time for you to go, with us across the street to the other hospital where we'll be doing testing.
This is for your good, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
We're going to do testing so we can heal you, so we can make you all better for your parents. And of course, there's none of that. Just more prescriptions for outrageous drugs like Thorazine and risperidol and these experimental antipsychotics and things like that, which I didn't have any need for. But the fact that I was psychic, okay, they turned those types of communications into evidence that I must be psychotic. Because what? Because I hear voices. Because I see things that other people don't see. Well, yeah, I do. It's called being a medium. There's lots of people out there who are sensitive to the astral.
Yes, there is.
This is not something you can tell me does not exist. And I don't deserve to be, labeled, incapacitated, all that stuff, and called a psychotic for being a child and talking about it. So, yeah, that's a good question, though. I want to talk about that. Yeah, they do have several people in there. There's someone at the machine. There's someone... Seems like there's some sort of projector device that someone is running. And then there's a person next to me. There's someone with a notebook. So, yeah, there's at least 3 of them, at least that I can think of.
And do they use hypnosis at the same time?
I would imagine, Miesha.
Yeah,
my state of mind was being altered on purpose. So, yeah, I'm sure they were using hypnotic suggestion and things like that, because hypnotic suggestion is a huge part of what controls the system. So they will be layering those things in the whole time they're accessing me at different brainwave states. So that's where like a hand signal might come into play. Okay, they had me on the table, they had, the beta alter out, it's a child and she knows secrets about the war, okay? But she's hidden beneath all these other altars, and all these other altars are programmed to do crazy things that will make me report back to my handlers for reprogramming before she can talk about it. But let's say that there's somebody with permission to access that information. Well, there will be a hand signal or a code or something that was layered in there to her gatekeeper, the altar that keeps her away. And if that person flashes me those signals or says the right thing with the right hand code, that tells my system inside those altars within me that it's okay, let the baby out. So those things are always layered in there, and then they're always changing them too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because since I was a top secret asset, I was carrying around information. And let me just say this right now, because I can already feel it. I do have multiple personalities, and many of them are integrating, and sometimes my voice might change when some of them are coming forward to kind of talk, because I don't have all the information in all of my altars. So, I appreciate their assistance, helping me to help other people right now, and trusting us.
You sent us some charts. Please let us know when we're supposed to show those charts on the screen, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just gave you a few kind of basic charts about like the secret space government. What corporations make that up. You can go ahead and put that up. Okay. That would be good. Because I don't think people understand. It's corporate interest that rules behind the scenes. And the type of stuff that these people are using people like me to mule information for, or even, commit crimes, which I've been involved in too. I'm not proud of any of that, but I have altars I've been through some terrible things and had to do some terrible things. And, in order to heal, I have to be able to love myself and accept that and integrate that and really understand that wasn't my fault.
Right.
But that's hard. And they use that to control you your whole life. They make you do terrible things and then use it to control you, because if you don't make them happy again, you're going to have to experience that again, or they're going to make you do something like that to someone you love. And with myself, they got their hands on me. Like I said, it seems like in the womb, it must have just always, I think maybe because of the time travel stuff, it may have manifested that way. Maybe it didn't appear so organized at first. I don't know. That aspect of things makes it all very confusing when you get into it. But, my sister was 3 years younger than me, and that's what I recall the biggest, thing they used against my psyche was threatening my sister. If I wasn't a good soldier, if I didn't help fight communism, if I didn't help with this and do this job, then they would do it to my sister, and my sister would have to do it. And I'm the one that's tougher and older, so I need to do it to protect her. So they do stuff like that, and they put that so deep in her psyche, they manipulate that even later on. So like in 2012, when I was taken for reprogramming, one of the punishments, they do it differently now. Well, see, when I was a kid, they would literally actually come in costumes and kidnap me and take me to a ritual and make me experience in physicality, like some just, it was like absurd graphic things, Now I understand that it was because of archetypal imprinting that they did that.
Oh, really?
But as I got older now, it's much more technological. And so when I went in 2012, I was being punished, and they wanted to use me for different things as well. The punishment and actually accessing some of my altars is done by terrorizing me at certain levels. So it was like they're using this technology to stimulate my brain in a way and send me frequencies and messaging that is making me perceive that horrible things are happening to my loved ones. And they're not really happening. This is a virtual reality type experience.
Right. I've experienced that, so I can share in your understanding of that.
Yeah, it's more common than people have any idea. It's a Navy SEALs Black Ops group that I'm aware of that is really involved with just terrorizing the crap out of some people. And with this technology, I noticed that the Navy SEALs, the Special Forces, it's like a Special Forces groups, okay? They're very important too. They're involved in this as well. And now they're used like the muscle also to bully, I guess people with clout or people that make decisions.
Oh.
They would have some fear of people like that because they don't want to be assassinated. They don't want to be sacrificed and have their clone take their place.
Which you may have to get into a little bit later about the clone.
Okay.
People will want to know about that. They will want to know about that, but I don't want to get you off base right now, so please do continue.
Sure, I know. It's with a multidimensional story, it's not always easy to explain it in a way that is very linear, so I'm trying.
All right, but you're doing wonderful. Go right ahead there.
Thank you. So drug running and gun running, pornography, and buying access codes for military computers, hiring and selling assassins, hiring and selling sex slaves, mercenaries, militia groups, militia muscle, super soldier, services, like assassination services. So all this stuff is going on behind the scenes with the people, the upper echelon of things that are pulling the strings behind the curtain. And one of the reasons why they use this method of programming people, like I'm explaining, is because it gives them, well, number one, it's covert. Okay, it can't be picked up by other intel operatives. It can't be observed by the usual intel agencies out there looking for suspicious stuff. They don't know what to look for. That's number one. Number two is it's free labor, Sure. And it's blackmail. And, I said technology makes the world go round, but let me back that up with blackmail helps a lot.
Oh, yes, it does.
That is a huge part of this. So there's levels, okay? So what happened with me was, as a child, I was a very cute child, I was involved in modeling and acting, the entertainment industry. I did TV shows and, just stuff, nothing big time, but enough.
Of course, because that's a big part of the whole program, is the modeling, the Hollywood, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah, and people have no idea. The entertainment industry is big time, Monarch, MK Ultra.
Yes.
I mean, people who are not programmed individuals probably don't hang very well in that environment, I would imagine. They've got to see this, and I'm sure that people who have spoken out, I know it happens, that those people start to get threatened and they just shut up because it is really scary. but the entertainment industry, the music industry, big time, big time, big time. And they put triggering codes and phrases that, okay, so when they bring me in for programming, when I was in Georgia in 2010, I went in for something called Sleeping Beauty programming. This is a super soldier program. Okay.
I know this one.
This program has to do with having sleeping super soldiers all over the states, that people like me with alters that are psychotic. And what I mean by psychotic is, I mean they'll act out without any conscience about it, because it's just like a computer. So they have this program sleeping in them, so that if they're activated, then that means during chaos, which they plan for, these people will go into effect and they will assist with mass slaughter and chaos.
Oh, really? Is that what you think? Oh,
yeah. They call it the Black Mass. It's really exciting for these Satanists, you know. It's interesting, too, when you get into the Satanists and the Luciferians as well, because those are not the same people.
Oh.
No. And they don't have the same long-term view as a lot of the satanic cults toward the bottom doing the grunt work, okay? But yeah, so this Sleeping Beauty in Georgia, you know, one thing that I remembered was they had me strapped down to a table. I had the straps over my neck, my arms, my legs. They had something in my mouth this time, though, because when I was being electrocuted, my mouth was biting down.
Right.
And so I remember there being something in my mouth. It was longer, I guess, longer treatments of electrocution, perhaps. Because when I had the body memories, see, people don't understand, when you reclaim a memory of something this traumatic, of torture and stuff, you don't just process it psychologically. Your body oftentimes processes that memory physically. Yes. Because the hypnosis was used to disassociate you from it, so your body never felt it. So now in real time, it's going to process. It's very scary. So while I'm having these memories, my body is literally jerking, and my jaw is clenching. And what I remembered was the particular handler, programmer, who was waving a watch, something that looked like a watch in front of my face, pocket watch, a clock, tick-tock. Those are all very big programming cues. And so he's hanging that over my face. I remember him telling me, go back to sleep, Sleeping Beauty. Now what happened was they had gotten to an altar. When she came forward, that was the super soldier part. They were blaring Kanye West, this song, Ham, at me while this is happening. And this album had not been released yet. So when the album was released and I heard that song, what it did was it activated that super soldier program.
Oh, yes.
So they used the artists, their songs for programming even before they've been released. And then when it gets released, bam, thousands of us are unconsciously tested or activated or whatever. Let's see. Yeah, so maybe people might want to hear about, well, what about the psychic stuff? You say you're a psychic super soldier too. What is that? I'm not coming from ego when I'm saying this. I have no, hero complex here, okay? I can't save the world. I'll be lucky if I save myself. And I think that we would all do well to adopt a similar attitude, because if we all just took care of ourselves in this situation, that's really the most we can hope for. And a big part of the program is to make you want to feel like a martyr, or make you feel like you have to save everyone else and that sort of a thing. And especially if you're a mom, they want to capitalize on that love for others and manipulate you through your loving tendencies, your mothering tendencies, things like that. If you have an ego that would like to be, have like a hero complex going on, then they'll use that. Whatever it is to keep you in a fantasy script where everything's cool and you're not being abused.
Okay, we're about to go on break. So if you were to start the psychic thing, that goes into a longer thing. So how about we do this? How about you answer just a couple of quick questions for me? They're on what we're talking about. How does one get out of the Sleeping Beauty? I mean, if you're somebody who is a meditator and is working on their consciousness and raising their consciousness, do you feel, in your opinion, that there is a block that we can actually retrieve some of these altars so that and integrate them. So with this integration, then we may be able to stop the targets, stop the sleeping beauty part, where they're going to access this later.
What my experience is that yes, there's a process. I'm learning how to work it through trial and error. I don't have financial means to actually get, like a stay in a hospital that actually can use truth serum and whatever to get to my altars and just tell me, like you see some of these MPDs. That's the thing. There's no expert to really go to. And if there was, people in this situation are kept pretty financially restricted so that you can't afford stuff like that. So most of the people I've come across are either limited by their psychology. In other words, they don't perceive the metaphysical aspects of this, and so they're limited and they cannot help you with the astral. But then there's people with good intentions who probably have gotten a lot further than anyone. That would be the Christian deliverance ministers that work the systems. However, because of their religion, they are limited to an extent as well. So I've had to go even beyond that with my own deprogramming. I have what's called a complex system. In other words, even complex systems are what's called triple bound. I'm quadruple bound at least. So it's a complex situation. I will be working through this process for years and years, I imagine. And what I strive for is awareness and management. And what I mean by that is, yes, I want to be able to reclaim these pieces, all the pieces of me, and not have them have power over my conscious will, which means I have to develop a solar consciousness, a powerful will that is aware of what it is I'm doing, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing all the time.
All the time,
and
yes.
Deconstructing sensory input all the time. And eventually what has started to happen for me is that some of these super soldier parts have come up for short periods of time. And then it's like when I get to a place where I feel like I can't control this being anymore, like it's so adrenaline junkied out and it's going to take over my body and do something crazy. I have other altars that shut my system. They know how to shut my system down for safety. Okay, but this is what I've had to work on, reprogramming my own system to work for me instead of my handlers.
Right, exactly.
And it's a personal thing. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, there's a process. It's not simple. It takes a lifetime possibly, but it can allow you to live without, I think, the detrimental fear that you're going to be used to go do something against your consciousness again.
Right.
Which is huge.
Which is huge. Yes. Well, I think we'll go ahead and take the break now, and we'll just be about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we will be back, and I'm going to play a really good song called Uprising, and listen to the words really careful, because Muse has got their finger on the pulse of what's going on, and it says it all, what's happening right now. So enjoy the music, and we'll be right back. And we are back. I'd like to make just a few short announcements. First of all, right here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we have our support group for experiencers. That includes people who have had MyLab, MK Ultra, any of that experiences, right here at my home on the third Friday of every month, which is the next one coming up will be the Starseed Awakening group. And we do things like we work on our channeling, our connections, our psychic abilities, which is what we're going to be talking about next with 2. And then also, of course, you can join the Starseed Awakening Facebook group. There's a like group and there's a Starseed Awakening Facebook private group. In order to join that group, once you do ask to come in, I will send you a questionnaire for an experiencer and Starseed. Once you've notified me of your experience, then I will invite you to come into the private Starseed group. Also, we have the MK Ultra Monarch group, which 2 and I are co-facilitating that, and 2 facilitates a support group once a month. Our next group will probably be the last Friday of this month, but we're going to just verify that with us later. And you can go to my starseedawakening.net. That is where you can go to look at my story as an MK Ultra and a Monarch experiencer. No super soldier that I know of, but the other things. I've been an experiencer myself since I was 3 years old, as well as an ET contactee and experiencer. And you can check out my story as well there, and my video of my story is on the video section. As well as you will find an archive of 2 on that video page, and then you can also archive 2 here through the radio station. So one last thing, Starseed Awakening will be having an extraterrestrial art exhibit, and that is at the Enterprise Library. It is going on till April 15th, and next Friday we're going to have a guided tour. I'm going to explain and tell the stories about each individual picture and the artist, the experiencer, and what kind of experience went on in that picture. And so come and join us there at the art exhibit at Enterprise Library. That is cross streets, Las Vegas Boulevard and Windmill on Shelburne, I think it's called. So we'll just get back with 2, and thank you to it's doing absolutely so interesting. I would want to make sure that you get a chance to give us your website. So why don't you give that now, and we'll also have you give it at the end.
Sure. It's Takana.com. TUTAKANA.com.
Okay, it's all yours. You're talking about the psychic.
Yeah, this is the real interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my training in the occult sector, because as I was explaining, there's different sectors that the Illuminati, have that they work with, right? So when they have their slaves, their assets, they basically triage you toward whatever, whatever. That was what made me so useful, actually, because they could use me for purposes that actually put me in jeopardy, where most people would be taken over by the dark forces that were used. Whereas because of my connection to Source was so strong, and because I'm a child of light, in other words, I came into this lifetime as someone who's already been through lifetimes of this type of development. So I had in my spiritual light bodies, if you want to call it that, certain abilities or karma built up. And they wanted to abuse this basically for their agenda. I didn't know who I was. I had to remember myself. So they wanted to take my ability and my innocence, because they knew the dark forces could not judge me like they could them. I was innocent. And they basically tried to abuse that as much as they possibly could, is how I understand it. Now, since I've been involved in all sorts of stuff as far as ritualistic and occult abuse, I mean, I've talked in another interview about ritually killing the Black Panther so that its soul could attach to me, and how this was a part of the shape-shifting experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
They're very interested in ancestral and earth powers, and anyone who can summon them or exercise authority over them, because the earth has laid a claim against a lot of these groups, so they can't work with the earth directly. They need a innocent maid with this ability to basically do their dirty work for them. It's really disgusting, it really is disgusting. There's no way to get around that. But in order to survive and in order to claim my own power and embrace my true inheritance, I've had to look and recognize that, the Creator made the dark and the light, period. Mm-hmm. And I've been exposed to these forces, and I've had to come to a place where I can acknowledge and accept and remain neutral to them, instead of having the attitude of, oh my God, I just have to stay away from, just be in denial that exists, or constantly, exercising myself or my space or whatever. What I found was that sort of attitude actually brought on harassment. For me, it was really just after 2012, after having such a big initiation and seeing my monad go into action and fight on my behalf and on the behalf of light and the earth. I don't doubt my connection, and I don't fear those beings. And the biggest advice I can give to anyone in this situation, going through these types of abuse or being used for, being traumatized, they are big energy, vampires. Mm-hmm. If you can get over the fear, it's like a really, really good thing, because when you're in fear, you produce some sort of adrenaline, some sort of byproduct of adrenaline that they love. They love that. So it's actually, the more scared they can get you, the happier they are. Right. The Dark Lodges, what they did was they trained me for astral projection. By using demonics, there's different ways they can do this. Number one, they've identified anybody who has a brain that is actually capable of psychic ability. There is actually a particular brain structure. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's called, but I know that they know this. They know that they can actually see it in an MRI to some degree. And so they do categorize and track anyone that they suspect has this ability. They're concerned about something called the metagene, which is the ability in humans. It's the latent genetic potential to actually exercise and display psionic powers, but it's activated through being terrorized, being scared, or having a severe physical or emotional trauma. So one thing they're very concerned about is, well, if we bring about our mass chaos plan, well, what if it backfires and the humans have their metagene activated and they become telepathic and they become, able to outsmart us? So they are just as scared of us as we are of them. They don't want people to know that.
And that's good news.
It is good news.
It is true. Yes, it is true. Because it's like you make the Frankenstein monster and the Frankenstein monster gets away. Well, that's what is happening with a lot of IBIS type project and super soldier, experimenty victims. I believe that there will be more like me awakening, reclaiming their powers and using them against the people who did it, using them against the agenda that created them to begin with. And they're very scared of that. And I hope and I pray that my testimony helps trigger more like that, because the more of us who can reclaim our powers and abilities, the better. It's not easy. It's a huge thing to swallow, to accept this situation of what you are, that you're not, that you're a experimentation survivor, that your DNA is different and activated in weird ways, that you have these things going on, that you're involved in these levels of stuff. And then to claim your awareness and acceptance and then power and strength to utilize all of that, it's very hard, and you have to get past the programming. But we can do it. I believe in it. I'm working it. I know there's others who will be working it too. I just believe it. I believe in humanity. I won't give up that belief in humanity. No matter what they tell me, no matter what they've tried to make me believe. And they, like I was saying, they use the demonic aspect of things to create spirit flight, to take a student or a slave to, different spheres in the astral and train them with different intelligences or whatever. But it's the dark magician who is actually your trainer who is doing this to you, and his demon. It's not actually you until you fight back and win your sovereignty over your black magician, which that can happen. I did it. So
I know that there's a degree of sovereignty that I have even in that world that is tangible. And it has been a result of me fighting back, of having that spirit to constantly be trying to, connect with source, to impact the good of all, and to believe, in myself. So they do all this stuff. They have technology. They can put it by your head. They can put outside your wall. Okay, it can stimulate an out-of-body experience, what we call astral projection through sound waves. So even though, some people just simply don't respond to psychic stimulation, the technology it's very productive of psychic phenomena with some people. So astral projection is accomplished when the person's asleep, but their mind is awake. So the body's asleep, your mind's awake. And that consciousness, they call it focus 10. When you reach focus 10, then your mind is stimulated by their technology to wander the astral plane.
Right, like a lot of the super soldiers do it that way. That's how
they are actually using a technology, frequencies that operate at the 16 hertz level or below. Because see, the human ear doesn't pick up anything below the 30 hertz frequency. So based on that information, we can assume that the brain will be unaffected by frequencies in the range sound, but that's not true. It's been found that if a frequency of 100 hertz is picked up by one ear, while the other ear receives a signal of 104 hertz, the brain does register the ghost beat. That's the 4 hertz difference. And by forcing the brain to register a 4 hertz frequency, you can force it into the theta delta brainwave state, which is on the border of sleeping and waking. It's the theta delta state that astral trips can be easily launched from. So there's more states than just focus 10 that allow astral travel, but focus 10 is the jumping off point. There's focus 12, 15, and 21. And those will produce more fantastic astral phenomena. So even the EEG pattern of a person who astral projects, it will change while they do it, but the EEG pattern that indicates astral travel, that's referred to an alphoid. So when people are subjected to that type of experimentation, they're jolted awake by high-frequency beta signals, just as they're induced into sleep. So you're about to go to sleep, and then you're jolted awake. So the results that when the mind awakens that suddenly, but the body stays asleep, and the mind's free to travel along the astral plane, a hemispheric synchronizer, that's used to get both hemispheres of the brain working together at the same time. They use the ELF waves, too, to modify people's thoughts and emotions. They can send ELF waves to implant into the consciousness of a targeted individual and transmit messages, make them experience schizophrenic symptoms. Oh. But this is an interesting thing because, like I said, they've locked me up in these hospitals. I'll tell you something about schizophrenic people. They don't have emotion. Okay, they're affective. They don't have an emotive response like most people. So just the fact that someone is upset, hysterical, claiming that they are being talking to aliens or being bombarded with voices or being targeted by this type of technology. The fact that they are so emotional about it is a dead giveaway that they are not a schizophrenic.
Well, most of the people that I know that have been labeled schizophrenic, they are very emotional.
Oh, yeah. They love to use that as an excuse. Oh, and then everyone around you thinks you're just a hysterical nutcase. Right. Just a basket case. Yeah. Schizophrenics are not basket cases. They're affective.
They're affective. They're the opposite. Well, that is wonderful information. I'm really glad you told us because I did not know that. And as a facilitator of groups since '92, I've run into this so many times, and in 90% of the time, it's been totally emotional. So they aren't schizophrenic; they're just being they're targeted individuals.
They're desperate. They have been, traumatized, and then what happens is someone who's going through this is already suffering, is already alienated, is already scared of being rejected, and they go for help. And then the people who are supposed to help them abuse them more because it is more hurtful to have someone that you think will help you reject you and simply refuse to help or simply ignore everything you're saying. Simply just choose to believe you're insane instead of look into anything you're saying. And this is what is so dangerous and scary to me is that there I was in Florida with that background, in that industry, with the actual connections that I have, at the police station with bruises on my arms, a videotape, a testimony of someone else stating that I went to bed without these bruises, something's going on, I'm not just crazy. And trying to explain to them that I would like to speak to an intelligence agent that, I believe that my father, the former employees, are involved in a Nazi intelligence cult. And I want to talk to someone who can help me disappear so I can get to safety with my child in exchange for my information related to bombs under the ground in that county. Terrorist potential.
Wow.
And instead of looking into it at all, they lied to me and said, oh, well, you know what we'll do? We'll pretend like we're Baker acting you, which is the legal term for taking someone who's so mentally ill they can't protect themselves from themselves and forcing them into a commitment for 3 days or more for observation. We'll pretend like we're doing that so everyone thinks that that's what's going on.
Oh.
And we'll get the CIA agent or whoever in there to sneak you out that way.
Oh, no.
So they got me to actually get in the police car and ride with them to the hospital, thinking that was the cover story for getting, you know what I mean? And it was just a big cruel joke. Oh, they kept me in there. I think they tried to keep me in there. They kept me in there for over a week, which is illegal. Every Baker Act I've had is illegal.
Yeah. Yes. I have a question or two. Do you want to keep on, or just let me know when you want the questions, okay?
You can go ahead and ask.
Okay, well, this one says, it's interesting. It's called Home of the Crazies is the name of the person. Yeah. Now, how can she be a GA and a FL at the same time?
How can I be in Georgia and Florida?
Is that what he's saying? Georgia and Florida at the same time?
I've never claimed to be in Georgia and Florida at the same time. I have no idea what that means.
Okay.
I've been in Florida, and I left Florida and was abducted in Georgia. I was a missing person for about 10 days, I think, at least a week. Their police were looking for me. They found me in Georgia. And then I went from Georgia to North Carolina. So I did quite a bit of traveling, but no, not in two places at once.
Yeah, so I don't know what that person was talking about either. All right, and on the body memory, when you have someone who has a body memory comes back, let's say they're having shooting pains in their head, and that's what's the body memory. That's more than likely something like electric shock or something like that. Or, that's what you could refer to when you talk about body memory, isn't that right?
Yeah, well, I'll give you another example. On 11/11/11, I had a memory of being put into a tank of freezing liquid and basically frozen to death under this water and being resuscitated out in the woods. This is where they must have set up some of the training camps that we've talked about. And when I recalled that memory in 2011, it must have taken place around 2002, but I didn't recall the memory until 2011. And when I did, my head hurt so bad. My body felt that pain, that ice cold, freezing, splitting headache so bad that I lost my pregnancy. And not only that, for I think it was about 2 weeks, well, at least a week, I was in bed with the worst headache you can imagine, and alters came up underneath that had experienced different things. So sometimes when we bypass personalities or try to get to those memories, there's actually not just the physical pain of what happened, because that's real, and especially going through something like that, a week's worth of processing pain. But on top of it, you may have layered into your system actually programming commands that will cause you to experience pain. If you start to get close to an altar you're not supposed to get close to, you can experience flooding of memories where altars will come to the front and just flood you with terrible memories so that you feel out of control. That's called flooding. They can make you feel shattered or like you're spinning and can't stop spinning. I mean, they layer in all these, it's kind of like reverse engineer system features to, for safety, to keep you from yourself. So there can be all sorts of issues. And it's really sad because the physical pain is real. It's real.
Yes, it is. Okay, I have 2 more questions here. Do you know anything about implants? Yes, she does.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different kinds of implants. There's technological implants. There's, genetic implantation. There's spiritual implantation. I've got something going on in my head. I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not sure I want to know. But it has me tapped into larger computer systems. This is what I talk about, the Beast network. There are like AI, artificial intelligence computer systems, and there's a supernatural component to this as well. So there can be spiritual intelligences actually running the programs. So sometimes assets will be hardwired into these systems. And like for myself, I go through days where I don't have any complaints, but other days I can feel things under my scalp. They're like little pins or something that must go into my brain. If I scratch my scalp a certain way and hit it like just so, it just sends this terrible pain into my brain. I have no idea what is going on there, but I know that technologically they are very advanced and they're capable of pretty much anything you can imagine. And the aliens are doing it to us too. It's not just, see, the Illuminati, the shadow government, a lot of them are controlled by the aliens, and some of them don't even know it.
That was the next question. I'm glad you're going into that, because they said, what are they mostly human, or are there also ETs doing these torturous things?
Both. Some of the ETs look human. Okay, for instance, when I got reprogrammed, they came in ambulances to haul me away illegally. Well, they had to use these like meat thugs to do that. The second ambulance pulls out. It's not the real one. See, they've got a covert system of thugs that look like everyone else. They belong here. It's an EMT person. No. These guys in the second paddy wagon were not. This is beefed up military assets. It's not a super soldier, not like me, not like a regular person who is programmed to act a certain way. This is like a
Navy SEAL, people like that.
Yeah, they're military. They're like thugs.
Delta Force.
They don't seem to have. I don't want to say that they're not ensouled, because I don't know that that's true. But what I do know is that they definitely don't seem to all like feel like we do. Sometimes they're run by some other kind of intelligence that is not human, and they take their orders from it. So unless you can, like in my case, when I was in the ambulance, the only way I was able to keep this guy like from it being in my space, from hurting me, from being rough and stuff like that, was to actually work with spiritual intelligences who had authority over the spiritual intelligence controlling his body. That was how I kept myself from, how he may have acted had I not had the ability to intervene spiritually. So they're like puppets for intelligences that are not necessarily human or ensouled all the time. But I'm not saying they're the problem. They're controlled by forces. They are what they are too.
Well, I have another question. We just have tons of them coming in now.
Well, we can take calls if you want.
Yeah, we can take calls. You can call in at 702-751-0020 if you'd like to ask a question and hear your voice on the radio. So, to the next question is this kind of stuff mostly in the U.S. or from all over the world?
Oh, it's around the world.
There are some areas where it is not, isn't there?
I would imagine there's got to be somewhere that is not as controlled. I mean, the United States is more controlled, obviously, than a lot of places. It is the headquarters for a lot of things. There is a New World Order agenda to destroy the United States, to create civil war, to crash our economy. That's all going down. They've got their underground bunkers, their food storage. There's a food crisis, a food shortage coming.
Right. They are already and set right underneath the airport, I think, at Denver Airport.
Oh, yeah.
That's their place. Does the base of the spine and the back of the neck have anything to do with implants?
Can, very well. And the base of the spine is where your life force energy, your kundalini energy, is stored and where it powers from. So putting an implant there might be a way of keeping you from experiencing the full potential of your ascension, which is part of their agenda, to keep humanity from the experience of alchemical ascension, while at the same time studying anyone who's actually experiencing it and then ripping off their spiritual experiences and mimicking them technologically, which is a whole other side of things. But your kundalini in your spine is very, very important. So any implantation there, like I know chronic pain is another sign of implants that happens a lot of the times in the lower back with victims. The neck, obviously, I mean, anything on your spine, it's just, that's your nervous system. It's your parasympathetic nervous system. It's your life circuitry, and it's your tree of life. It's your tree of life.
So that kind of covers this one thing that somebody says, I thought the mouth of God was at the back of the neck. I've never heard that before. Have you?
Well, yeah, it starts with a C. Down there at the base of the skull, there is another center, but the kundalini force comes from the sacral, the sacrum, the tip of the tailbone. And it runs up and it bites you there. It's like the mouth of the snake would be there, okay? So the tail, if the snake is coiled at the bottom of the tailbone and it rises up the spine, and then the mouth would bite you right there at the back, like at the back of the skull. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if they're talking about that perhaps, but I mean the whole thing, it's a very important system.
Okay, well, there's no questions right now, so go on to wherever you want to go.
Okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the Civil War stuff, because it's important.
By the way, that's what they were asking. They said yes, that's right. That's what they meant. Okay, so we're good.
It's important. One of the things that I was used for is mulling information back and forth between different, covert parties. So when I was in North Carolina and they got me into the jail system there, they literally, I was trying to get away from a cult member, and there was 3 witnesses telling the policeman that I picked up this huge ceramic flower pot. I mean, it was outside of an empty restaurant that was under construction. It was huge. And I needed to get the attention of people and get this handler dude, away from me. So I picked up this pot and I slammed it to the glass door of the restaurant. I was hyped up. I had a lot more strength at the time, too, than I usually do. And what they did was they came and arrested me while 3 people are telling the policeman that they shouldn't be arresting me, that I was trying to get away from someone. And the policeman didn't care, of course, because the whole thing was actually orchestrated. I had in my hands a ring that is an occult item that was shoved into my hands by this person as they're taking me in. It was an identifying thing. The ring I was wearing was identifying. The occult item they gave me was identifying. When they took me into the police station, they knew from those items and from my behavior that I was actually an asset. The first thing they did, they put me in a hole. Okay. So what that means is it was a dirty floor cell with nothing but a hole in the ground to poop in and pee in.
Right.
And I think there may have been a sink. And they called me out of the hole and brought me into an office where a psychiatrist was interviewing me. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
No.
You go to jail and you don't get a phone call. You get an interview with a psychiatrist?
No.
Yeah, that's not. And I'm in there and I see other people hooked up to some sort of drug pump. I mean, there was weird stuff going on. This is in Buncombe County, Asheville. This is a real bad place, and that's why I'm talking about it, because people need to be aware. This area is controlled by New World Order Satanists of the worst kind.
What is it again? Say the name of it.
It was Asheville, North Carolina area.
Oh, okay.
They've got underground stuff, installations going on there. They have the human sacrifice going on. They have all sorts of stuff. It is a big headquarters for some reason. And so I was in the jail, and I was there to give them information from the satanic cults, and they knew that. But in order to, I guess, try to get into my, well, first of all, they gave me LSD, okay, on a blotter paper with the gray drop on it. They gave me that, and they did that, I believe, in order to program me or change my consciousness or something. I don't know. There was all sorts of things I was perceiving, because they're using their technology to bombard me with, like, you know, virtual reality type stuff at the same time. It's the programming. So then I remember they had, and I'm saying stuff to them, and they're giving me feedback, okay? So the psychiatrist accesses my Christian altar. So my Christian altar is talking about delivering everyone in the jail. They shut that down. They pull out another altar talking about something different, you know, and I'm watching this. I'm witnessing it. Although they don't believe I'm able to witness it, I was able to, because Spirit did that for me. Spirit was working with me in Guardians, you know. So I'm able to remember. They brought me into a room where they did the hooking me up to wires again, some sort of reading my, you know, like maybe an EEG or something, reading my vitals. And they gave me a shot of what I think was like must have been like truth serum or something. And I know they asked me questions and tried to get things out of me, okay? But I don't think my system gave them everything they wanted or something. They still wanted something from me, and I was playing games with them after, and I remember that. But I don't remember the information they did get from me.
They want to know
I'm pretty sure
who
they
is
sexually
there.
abused me too, because when I came to, my throat hurt so bad, and I felt like I had been having something rammed down it, which is, oral sex is something that actually impacts my children alters. It can be not just a form of programming, not just gratifying for the people who are abusing you, but a way of like re-traumatizing the child parts or accessing deeper memory by creating trauma that happened as a child. So they do tend to do things like that at times. And so what they did was they put me back in the hole, or I woke up in the hole the next day, and I very specifically recall having my Christian altar out, and I'm talking and I'm preaching, okay, and they're like, boo, giving me the negative feedback. They were telling my system, no, they don't want me to do the Christian thing. I'm not supposed to do the Christian thing. And then I start talking about this New Age information. And they start praising me, okay? Because they were actually trying to program me to be to actually help perpetrate propaganda on other people with my like charisma, my personality, whatever. So I've had to undo a lot of programming that has to do with this stuff.
Okay.
And it's,
somebody wants to know when you're talking about they were they in police uniforms? Were they in white coats? Who were they, the ones that were doing all this to you while you were in the police station?
Yeah, some of them had white coats. The doctor had white coat. The police had police uniforms.
So they were
some
also
of the people
involved.
do dress up too. So like one of the people that would come to the door of my hole and look in and do certain things. This person, although it was a police officer, she had her face painted like that musical Cats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that had some impact on my system. It was you know what I mean? So they do weird things. The cult members, the Special Forces members that I was with the few nights before that, they had holographic tattoos. So we were in a black light, and these holographic tattoos are showing, and it was a psyop. It was impacting someone else who was there. It was supposed to impact me too at a level, but I had some awareness of the psyop. So they do very strange things. But yeah, police uniforms for sure. And I could, if I could do a lineup with the police that were actually, working when I was there, I could point them out.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Yeah. So very frustrating. And of course they dropped the charges and everything. And they never let me have a
They dropped
call.
the charges? Oh, because they,
they
didn't want you to go in front of a judge. Of course not.
No. What they did
everybody's
was
in
they
on
dropped
it,
all the charges and shipped me off to a hospital where I thought I was going to get a rape kit because I was telling them the whole time I had been raped.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't care. And so I thought I was finally getting my rape kit, that the public defender who finally found me in there was getting me, she thought she was helping me get out and get a rape kit. She's like, what the hell is going on? How come you haven't had a phone call? Why is this? What is that? And I'm like, the whole thing's a mess. I was raped. I need help. And so next thing I know, they're getting me out of there and they're taking me to the hospital where I think I'm getting a rape kit. You know what they did? Excuse me. An intravaginal ultrasound to make sure I wasn't pregnant. And that was it.
Oh, yeah.
And then they transferred me to the psychiatric unit so they could cover that whole thing up. And I even tried to make a police report while I was in a psychiatric unit about the mind control cult. Because there was children there, Miesha, children. Ritually abused. I was used to activate and look, basically be a...
That was in Nashville?
Yes, and I'm trying to tell them I'm involved with these people in a cult, and they're dealing cocaine, and they're hurting children, and I need, I want someone to take me seriously,
Yeah.
And come to find out, while I'm in that hospital, someone else just happens to be in the hospital, and he just happens to tell me the same person I'm claiming is in a mind control cult. He knows that name, and he happens to know someone named Johanna working with an FBI agent in the area, accusing the same person of the same thing. Well, I would like to know what happened with that. And I would like to know, are there any real intelligence agents out there who aren't sold out to the Satanic New World Order and do not promote kitty pedophile and torture and abuse?
Right. Now, we got some more questions. One person says that they always have a psychiatrist at a police station. I didn't know that. I'd never heard of it before. But that's their opinion. And what is your favorite practice to interface with spirit and raise your frequency? Somebody wanted to know, is there anything positive that's come out of this? And then along with this, the favorite practice to interface with spirit and raise your frequency. That would kind of answer both those questions.
Well, as far as there being psychiatrists at police stations, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to get a phone call before anything like that would happen. And I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be giving you LSD.
Yes, exactly.
So none of it makes sense. I'm sorry.
No, none of it does.
As far as raising your frequency, it's not about your frequency so much as your awareness. It's your consciousness, it's your spiritual development. It's beyond frequency, okay? That's the language of the programmers.
Frequency?
Because it's so shallow. It's so superficial. Oh, it sounds like think happy thoughts. It's not that easy. It's not. You can't make reality go away because you change your mindset to pretend like a predator is not approaching. This is a slight distortion. Now, yes, you can raise your consciousness and you can undo the programming and you can bring yourself to a vibration, a frequency. If you want to use, we can use those terms. You bring yourself to a mind state where you are actually in touch with spirit and soul, and you're not able to be seduced or manipulated by these things. You're not attracting them into your field anymore because there is such a thing as resonance. I think that must be what they're talking about, actually.
Probably resonance, yeah.
Yes, resonance. Okay, so yes, you do need to change your resonance, of course. If you are in fear and you're caught up in the victim mentality or feel like there's you're going to probably recreate more experiences of victimization. That is true. But to me, it's less about talking about, well, just change your frequency, because to me that sounds so like flaky, like, oh, you just think happy thoughts. It's not about thinking happy thoughts. It's about cultivating an inner state of awareness and connection to truth. Truth is a literal spirit. We call this Christ consciousness. The spirit of truth. When you know the spirit of truth, well, then you're and you know the language of your soul, and you're in touch with that, and you're not in fear, and you don't doubt your connection to Creator, and you have the right intentions, and you're setting that intention. Yes, your life will change. Yes, absolutely. My connection to my spirit guides, my connection to my soul, that's what has led me out. That was what got me through that whole fiasco alive. And
more questions about Asheville.
Sure, and it needs to come out. It's got to come out.
It does need to come out. Now, this is ASHEVILLE. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that because it could sound like Nashville to some people, so it was with the A, so they just know, so they know that. One of our people said the Illuminati, and let's see, the Illuminati and what is doesn't make sense. What are the humans doing? Basically, are the Illuminati sacrificing people in Nashville?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They have children under the ground. They have hostages under the ground. And they kill babies. That's right.
Yeah. I know that your child altar really, really, really gets feels this pain and everything. I know that. So I'm aware that comes out, and that's okay because it's this needs to come out. I mean, everybody should just go picket Asheville. Let's see.
Well, they're heavy into the music scene there, and I tell you what, if you're involved in the music industry in that town, and you're feeling funny, like weird stuff is going on, or you're under a curse, or you probably are, because the majority of the people who have any sort of clout or power in that community are Satanists. They're working with black magicians, they're working with extraterrestrials, and they're working with technology that is so abhorrently abusive to people, like myself, who are test subjects for it. I mean, people with money in Hollywood can pay to psychically drive people like me so that they literally, it's like that person is suddenly in your body. Their voice is coming out of your mouth. It's the weirdest thing ever. And there's a Freemasonic lodge right there by Swan and Noah in Asheville, Swan and Noah Road or Drive or something. Freemasonic lodge is a location where a lot of this is going on. And those guys were heavily involved in the stuff that I'm talking about.
And somebody said about the underground bases, which is what you're talking about. That's where they've kidnapped many, many kids, and that's where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also use these groups of people, these I call them hostages because they are used at times. Certain ones are used for negotiations, trades, and I mean, there are some good intel. I believe there are some good intel people, some good occult groups, some good initiates that are actually, working with Creator and working covertly behind the scenes against these things. Okay, right. If it wasn't so, we'd already have civil war here.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So we must recognize that, and there's covert things going on, and I'm aware to some degree that sometimes it's like the good guys, I'm calling good guys in quotations, whatever it is that's motivating them, might want to protect a group, so they're used, like pawns on a chessboard.
Is that
the sacrifices, that's that's another thing too. There's certain people, beings that they want to get their hands on. They like little boys the most, little innocent boys. And I have a little boy, and he went through something awful with all of this because he was with me.
Oh yes.
And I can't
so
go.
You didn't even know where he was when they threw you in jail.
Well, thank God, my mother flew up. She flew up and she got him and she brought him down and gave him to his paternal grandmother for safekeeping.
Oh, that's good.
Thank God. Yes, thank God. But he was not without being traumatized. He did endure some abuse and programming when we were in Georgia because we were both being held in the woods together.
Right. Oh, dear. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he's got his own set of issues. And, I guess it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I know about this stuff. But it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I can't talk about it to his doctor. No. I can't get a real child therapist because they will turn on me and they'll take him from me. Absolutely. For asking for help, for asking to protect him. That's what they did to me in Florida. They took my daughter from me because I wanted to protect her from this cult. So people like me, mothers who try to speak out, immediately they go right for the goods. They go right for your kids. And you learn that, and you go through something like I did where you get kidnapped with your kid and you'll do anything to keep them from hurting your baby again.
Right. Someone has just questioned. They just want to confirm. Is it the Black Mountain?
I'm not from there, so I don't know the names. That I could look at a map.
Sounds like this place is just as bad as Dulce.
Swain County is another one right next to there that I know there was some stuff going on in.
Swannonoa, Swannanoa, someone said.
Swannanoa? Is that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the road.
That's the road. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And there's a Freemasonic lodge near there. That's the road I've wound up on.
Oh,
and then where the cult had me. Mm-hmm. And then they stole my car, and then they found my car 2 months later. Oh, it's just crazy. But what's so frustrating is that I have a paper trail on all of this. I have news reports of me missing. I have, they recorded me at the Hamersham County in Georgia police department when they found me. And the way they found me was that the little girl who belonged to the naval program I was with, she actually brought a cell phone in. I had not had access to one, and I got it for a few minutes, and I sent a text to my sister, and I said, trace this phone number. I need your help. I'm kidnapped. I'm involved with the Matola crime family, and I need you to not call this number back, or you will get me in trouble. But get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And she got the police to use satellite or something to find where we were, and then my mom and my girlfriend showed up out there with the police. Now, at first, they sent just a policeman to come get me, and I refused to go.
Uh-huh.
Now, why do you think that is? I thought he was going to bring me to my death.
Well, sure. Of course you did.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was so,
first
of all, traumatized, hypnotically under the spell of this guy who was a Navy occult handler. He was the one, I had a map in my system. I had a map in regards to this Civil War timeline, in regards to naval information, encoded warfare information, and timelines. And I drew that map for him, and I gave him the codes to break. And I guarantee you, he delivered it to the Navy.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So that was what they wanted, and I was scared they were going to kill me. And it was my birthday.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So my sister, the police came and got me. And when I was in the police department, the guy who kidnapped me came along. He had my mom under this hypnotic spell. He was a reptilian. And he had her under this spell where she was like asking me, am I sure I don't want to stay with him? That he really wanted me to stay with him? Mm-hmm. She was, just one wipe, just hypnotically gone. And so and he's out there in the parking lot with my mom, and I'm looking at them as I'm talking to the police. And I'm scared to death he's going to hurt my mom. I started talking about things, and I don't know what I said. I was so worked up, but they did record me. I remember they were like, well, can we record you? And I was like, yes, please record me. And I was talking about Satanism and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, there's evidence. There's evidence that can be collected,
Well,
but there's no one to go to.
It's not completely dirty, and it's cleaned out.
Very possibly.
Yeah. And you're not the only one that has this happen to you. There's a case not too long ago. What was it, in the 90s or something, or maybe early 2001 or something like that, where a lot of people went in front of a hearing to talk about this kind of thing, and it was actually a lawsuit that it was. I can't remember, but there were several women that talked about the different torture and mind control and things like that. But they need another one. Now they need another one. They need a lot of people to come forward, and they need another one. They need to have some senators, and I don't know whoever else. It needs to be on cult.
I agree. I would like to see that too. I would like to see some people stand up. Nobility around the world maybe have a potential for it if they're not. I know there are noble families that are displaced. Mm-hmm. Those people know things. They need to come out and talk about it. Yeah. Ex-senators and congressmen. The problem is that most of these ex-senators and congressmen are controlled.
Yeah.
They sold out and became lobbyists, and they're all blackmailed anyway. They just photoshopped them in a pedophile orgy. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they went there with that Photoshop, and they said, you better do what we say, or your wife's getting this one, and her church.
Exactly. I remember some monarch stuff that I know I was involved in that had to do with blackmail for somebody. Yeah, so they do that.
That's another topic, is that in my system I've been deprogramming, right? Well, some of the first things that my alters did was actually frame or set up or try to get me to believe this was my mom's church doing this to me. Christians. Okay? And a Republican congressman who she was a campaign manager for and I was a babysitter for. And he was an elder at the church. So I was supposed to believe that it's all him and the church. Okay? Which I think has to do with a larger NWO agenda because they don't like Christians. They don't. See, they're scared that their belief, the thing about, New Agers and Starseeds and stuff is that we do not unify on much. So they don't see us as being dangerous, but they do see Christians as being dangerous because they'll unify on that Bible. They'll unify in their belief and they'll stand up and they'll say, no, we're not going to fall for this. And they know that. And they want their guns and all that stuff they don't want them to have. So I felt like, well, did they, they probably wanted to use this opportunity to make me feel like it's these people over here and point the finger.
Right.
Well,
we are running very close to the end of the show, and I want to make sure that you get to take one last statement and say, what if there was one question or one statement you'd like to make to people, what would that be? What could you impart on our listeners?
I think that all of us, regardless of our cosmic origin, where we're going in the future, where we feel like we came from, or how we relate to ourselves or classify ourselves spiritually or religiously, politically, all of that, we've got to set aside all those labels in categories because that's what they use to separate us and conquer us. That's how they stay in charge. And we've got to unite on human principles. Human principles. And if we could at least unite on American principles in one country, that'd be great too. Things like personal freedom, civil liberties. These are serious accusations that I'm making.
Yes, they are.
But they fall on deaf ears. So something is seriously disturbed in our whole system. And I think if we can unite on human principles, foundational principles for, truth, for justice, for personal liberty, basic things like that, we've got a fighting chance to just really expose this stuff and pull it apart. And if there are good people in the intelligence agencies still, I believe in them. And I hope that they'll assist and that they'll put their feet out and they'll risk their fat paycheck or whatever they have to do because it's your kids too. And if it's not your kids this year, it's your grandkids eventually. It's all of us.
Exactly. Yeah, people just can't leave a deaf ear to this type of subject. This is way too important, and it is going on, and it's going on in huge amounts. People just have no idea what amounts of people are affected by this. And I'm first generational monarch. There's a second generational, which I guess you probably are, and then you've got your third generational, and that's what they're doing to these young kids. The super soldier stuff. It's just
Yeah, well, they're doing the nanite thing, and that's something I've got.
Oh yeah. We have 2 minutes. Can you give me a 2-minute thing on nanites?
Yeah, I don't know, technical details. I just know that it's coming. They do it with the chemtrails. I stay in my house pretty much all the time, and it sucks. But at the same time, I try to expose myself to the outside as little as possible because of this. They get all those chemtrails going, and I mean, it's like there's something in that. These little nanites, they're technology that is self-replicating, and it's like what it does is it replicates a cell and replaces your natural cells. It's like a virus that replaces your brain with a techno brain, kind of is the way I understand it, but I'm not an expert. What it feels like, I can tell you that from first-hand experience, it feels like suddenly I am a robot. And my programming kicks in, and that's that. There's no reasoning with me. There's no, I'm working on it. It takes a lot. I'm working on it. But last time this happened, it took me about a week to come back to normal. And I was fighting all week,
Well, I send you, and I hope the rest of the listeners sends you protection and love so that there's no retribution for any of your openness and telling us what's gone on in your story and what's happened in your life. And I thank you so much and for your bravery. I salute you for your bravery, that you're such a brave lady. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this with us.
Thanks, Miesha.
And once again, as you know, as I said earlier, we have an MK Ultra Experiencer group. If you do want to come to that group, I do announce it throughout my Facebook and some other groups. But when you do come to it, you will need to fill out a questionnaire. We do screen it very carefully to make sure it is a safe place for people. It will be on Uvu, and I guess probably I'm thinking it's like the 28th is what it is, Friday the 28th for the next one. So please tune in to that if you are a MyLab or MK Ultra or any of these things, and you need to talk to other people, because she's the facilitator of the group, and it's a really good group. You can really hash out some things that get to your heart and work on those fears, because if you can't clear away that stuff and that fear, you're just destined to keep repeating all those bad memories. So it's best to clear it away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Miesha, I can talk for hours about all of this, and because I really needed to get some of this darker stuff off my chest and out there, because it needs to be.
Yeah.
But there is, someone asked, and I meant to comment, there is a brighter side. I mean, there is a message of hope for sure, and there's a message of love from the universe, definitely. Yeah. But we've got to do our part, and we can't expect to be rescued by some, messianic savior force, and we can't expect to turn, away from reality and it to change itself. Yes. Can't. We have to take on our creator responsibilities, embody them, and take our heart and our knowingness and translate it into action in order to create, in order to bring in a better reality for our future. We talk about creating a fifth dimensional Earth. I'm talking about we got to clear out, this stuff in the way.
That's right, we do. Well, thank you two so much for coming on the show. And I will be posting what my next show will be about. I actually don't have a guest set up yet. Universe will provide one, I know that. And come to the Starseed Awakening Facebook site and join and talk with people like Tu and other people that will give you so much information. Thank you for coming to Starseed Awakening Radio Show, and tune in next month for our guest. Bye-bye. Good night. Night, Tu. Thank you.
Good night.